So, damit können wir starten. Ich darf euch sehr herzlich zu diesem ersten Online-Vortrag, leider nicht im Weißraum, aber zumindest mit Weißraum begrüßen. Unser Gast heute ist Tony Brook vom Londoner Studio Spin und der Titel des Vortrags ist Experimental Practice. I now switch to English because we also have some English-speaking guests with us tonight, and the rest of the evening will be in English anyway, so let's start with English. It's strange times at the moment. We are, of course, all still shocked about what happened in Vienna yesterday evening, but we still decided to keep on doing our program. We think it's important to keep a normality going on. We're happy for this, and we hope you're all fine. We would, of course, have preferred to meet you face-to-face tonight in Innsbruck at Weißraum, but as this is not possible, we are happy that Tony Brook was okay with doing this lecture online with us tonight, and we cross fingers that everything works. We did our best, so yeah, let's go for it. I want to introduce our speaker for tonight now, and we try to put him on the screen now. Hello, Tony, do you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, Tony. Nice to see you. Welcome, and thanks for being with us. We just, okay, everything works.
Yeah.
Tony Brook is a designer, publisher, curator and collector. He founded the studio Spin in London in 1992 together with Patricia Finnegan. Spin is doing the whole range of visual communication, from books to digital, from corporate design to campaigns, also in 3D space, exhibition design and things like this. And I would say they have a special passion for typography in all ways. I hope that's right. Spin is working for big clients, for well-known clients, and also very much in the cultural fields, for museums, exhibitions, for design schools, and so on. Beside that, Tony founded the independent publishing company Unit Edition in 2009, together also with Patricia Finnegan and with Adrian Shaughnessy. With this publishing company, he published books from designers for designers, as he said, on topics mostly ignored by commercial publishers. Tony's also a passionate collector of graphic books and posters, with a kind of focus on the Dutch designer Wim Crowell. He also has curated an exhibition about that designer a few years ago in the Design Museum in London. So now, Tony, I pass the microphone over to you. We are very curious about your presentation, and I think the technique works right. Everyone is mute. After the presentation, we try to manage a question answering session, so then everyone is really invited to ask questions, and we manage this by hand waving in the Zoom, how it's called, participants session. Yeah, we can talk about this later. I think everyone of you knows that, and we'll manage that. So the stage is yours, Tony, and we are happy to have you here. Thank you.
So this one, and okay, can we all see that?
We can see you. Yeah, it says Spin on the screen.
It does. Thank you very much. Okay, so I suppose the first thing to say is, for those of you wondering why we're called Spin, it's because I'm a big fan of cricket. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for me to explain the nuances. You're probably quite relieved that we don't have time to explain the nuances of cricket, but that's where it's from. As Nicola said, we're a design studio that we started out as a design studio that makes identities communications and all different kinds of work for different kinds of clients. And these are all clients that we made identities for. You can see the variety here from cultural institutions through to television channels and furniture makers, all kinds of things. This is where we work. This is our studio. We have, basically we work at the bottom of a garden where I also live in the house that's behind us as this photograph was taken. And this is the garden as it is during summer. Sadly, it's looking a little bit more barren and down a hill than this now, but this is it in all its glory. So we're very much a European focused design group, both philosophical. We've always looked to Europe, and we'll continue to do so. So why have we always created work for ourselves, motivated by, well, we're motivated by curiosity, by a desire for self-expression, and a reasonable question would be, why is that so? I think part of it is a compulsion. I think that if we have the opportunity to make something, and that there's an idea that we get excited about, that we haven't necessarily been asked by a client, then that's something that we will actively do, and we'll program it into our week so that we can do it. I think one of the really fundamental things is because we enjoy doing it. I think it's really important. And also because it sometimes feeds into our commercial work, which is useful as well. But it gives us an opportunity, essentially it gives us an opportunity to play with different technologies, different ideas, you end up in different places, and the knowledge that you gain from these projects is always worthwhile. So that's something that's important to say. And this is something that we've just kind of started getting comfortable with even in the last few days, which is it art? Is what we're doing art? And I think that I don't know if any of you know who Patrick Thomas is a fantastic English artist who's based in Berlin and Stuttgart. And he said that, is it commissioned? Well, no, it's not. So it's art. So we're comfortable with that. And so we think that what we've been doing in this self-initiated projects might well be art. And that we've always felt that there's a kind of a false division between design and art, and that basically we seem to be operating in the blurred line between the two things, between art and design. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back one step. What we're about to see is a self-initiated project that we made about 15 years ago. And this was the project that kind of kicked everything off, really, in various ways, but I'll explain that after we've seen it. So that short film essentially came from, we had a football table in the studio, and I was watching people playing, and I realized that they made very odd shapes with their bodies while they were playing, and I thought that was kind of fun, kind of interesting. So we made a short film out of it. Now, the costs for this ballooned out of all proportion, and we only ever showed it to ourselves, which seemed very self-indulgent. So we made a decision after that film to basically try and do something that was a little bit more outward facing, that would be something that we could share. So, and that's essentially where Unit Editions came from. It's a publishing company that came out of, first of all, we did some papers, and they sold very, very well on designers' reading lists, and one was on punk 7-inch singles and various subjects. And we were surprised at how well they were received. And so we decided, after a bit of an unfortunate experience with a publisher, that we would try and do it ourselves. And so with Adrian Shaughnessy, who's a writer and academic, is a writer on design, we decided that we would set up Unit Editions. And so, as Nicola mentioned, one of the things that we did was I curated an exhibition on Wim Crowell. So we published a catalogue on him. And these are a variety of books that we've done. Essentially, they're all on graphic design, or certainly visual culture. This one's on contemporary typography. And we've done books on manual identity, guidelines, and magazines, and all kinds of things. Anything that impacts on the world of graphic design. This is Paula Scher, who's a partner at Pentagram, you might have heard of. And top right, we have Vaughan Oliver, who died recently, unfortunately. And top left, we have Herb Lubalin, and then Paula, and Spin Monograph, which is sold out now, sadly. And this is a recent book that we've just published, and we designed all the rest of the books that you've seen just then, but this one was designed by Studio Julia and is brand new, off the press. So, Adventures in Typography. This was born out of the experiments that we were making with the typographic form. It's something that's always fascinated us, and it was just an expression of our engagement and interest in typographic form. Before we moved into the studio that we're in now, we were in a very conventional studio. And we moved into the studio, we moved in with the express idea that we would give ourselves the opportunity for more experimentation. And that's basically how this stuff came about. This was born out of our move and a desire to move on and to try and push ourselves and explore different kind of avenues. As you can see, animation is always an important part of what we do. And so that was issue 1 of Adventures in Typography, and then this is issue 2, which was a little more conceptual, I suppose. It starts with the idea of numbers and counting off, which is basically when you get a song and they count it in 1, 2, 3, 4, and they start playing. Is the of the music, or is it before the music? And there was just an interesting idea that you could count off into a publication, so that's what that's about. And then we started using bits and pieces from the garden outside to make letter forms. So these are some lettuces, and I quite like the play on words of letters, not easy to say. So these are some of the letter forms that we made out of lettuce. And this was made out of trying to make a typeface that essentially is all the wrong proportions, and can it still be read? Then this is a more conceptual kind of thing. I'm not sure if all you know who Dorian Gray is, but basically Oscar Wilde wrote a book called A Picture of Dorian Gray. And in the book, this young man would go out and he would have wild time on the town, and he would burn his candle at both ends, as we would say. But he never got any older. But this portrait in the attic would get more and more decayed. And we were wondering if Helvetica was like Dorian Gray, and every time it was abused, it got old and worn out in a drawer in a Zurich typographic office somewhere, that we could imagine it decaying and getting more and more misshapen. And so we wondered, could we breathe some new life into Helvetica by kind of doing an operation on it? Oops. And so these are the results. So this is main action, and this is the process. Starting to make up letter forms. And then we have Frankenstein. So we called it Frankenstein's Helvetica. Unfortunately, the operation was unsuccessful, and Frankenstein's Helvetica died and was cremated, and this is the ashes of Helvetica. So all this experimental work that we were doing, create a space for ourselves in which we could use these experiments, that we could show them off and basically give them their own space. And so this is the identity for Spin Projects, and essentially it's about the decisions that you have to make when you're making anything creative, which is, should I add more or should I take more away? And it's not less is more, it's less or more. And it's always a decision that any designer or artist has to make when they're making a piece of work. And so this is the homepage of the website, where to add more or take more away. Depending on how you're feeling. And here's some screens on the phone. And this is going to be coming up soon, where we're looking at the possibility of making editions of these ideas. limited editions of these ideas. So the first project we're going to look at is about wire. Now, this sort of came about by accident, really. We were given some wire hangers from a local dry cleaners. We got some clothes dry cleaned, and they had some wires, and we started playing with the wires and started making letter forms out of them. And the more that we kind of investigated wire as a material, the more we found out there's an incredible history of making art with wire goes back to the Egyptians and onwards. And so, you know, it's one of those strange items that we actually couldn't function without wire, and yet we don't really notice it or take any notice of it generally in daily life. So we thought that there was a fascinating subject that we could investigate. And so this is wire typography. So it's essentially wire that's been made into a digital form and then turned into a typeface. And what we really enjoyed was the way it drifts in and out of legibility as it turns round. Just becomes an incoherent scribble at some points. And we made an app for this, which was great fun to do. And you can, it just shows how it works. Our studio in the background. Oh, sorry, a house in the background. And through this QR code, you can go and get the free. Maybe you can give it some more ratings. We've only got one so far. But it'd be great if you could download that and have a play with it and see what you think. And this is just another idea that we had that kind of sprang out of the our wire investigations. Was, wouldn't it be lovely to make a neon side light out of neon tube that was formed in the shape of wire? And so this one we're looking at is on the moon, which is a very romantic notion, I suppose, the moon. But it's always held a fascination. There's lots of legends about the moon, about the strange things that happen with the moon, with it and it turning blue. And there's also a really nice little typographic reference. Wolfgang Weingart issued did an issue of the periodical Typographische Monatsblätter. Apologies for the pronunciation. Is this typography worth supporting, or do we live on the moon? So this is an exploration. So this is based on craters. And these are lyrics from songs that feature the moon heavily. So Bad Moon Rising and White is on the Moon. by Gil Scott Heron. If you don't know it, it's a fantastic song. And then we have the 4 typefaces that we developed based on that. And being graphic designers, we always explore some kind of product ideas. And so, so move on to Symmetrica. Symmetrica is a kind of like a, it wasn't really inspired by Distill, but it's ended up looking like that. I think it's a kind of like a very brutal, reductive and hard-edged typeface that's as abstracted as we could make it, but still hopefully legible. This is a 3D rotating render of it. And again, it's playing with a similar idea to the wire idea, where we're looking at legibility. When does it become illegible? So this is the entire typeface. And these are some ideas for products that we thought might be nice to typeface. So directional speakers we thought would be cool. And if you, in this QR code, you can get a free copy of Symmetrica. And it'd be great to see, for you to share any experiments that you are inspired to make using it. It's a free download, and you can get it on the Spin Project's website. So just scan that in with your iPhone, and you can get playing with it. So Metamorphosis was really kind of inspired by the move here and the possibilities that change offers and what have you. When you start looking into Metamorphosis, it's a thing that's inspired artists through the centuries, and basically it's the possibility of imagination and science coming together, and that's something that's always interested us, especially in the digital analog kind of area. So this is taking things from our immediate surroundings and changing them into typography. With the typewriter, playing with it. So these are all prints that have been hand finished. And this is how it would read as a word. Unfortunately, there were 12 blocks, so the S got cut off, but you get the idea, I think. So now we're going to move into some commercial projects and try and show how the self-initiated projects have influenced the commercial projects that we've made, or some of the commercial projects that we've made, and how that kind of that integration works. So with Aircord is kind of we describe it as a futuristic digital company, and that's exactly what it is. It makes kind of happenings, really digital happenings out in the world, in environmental design and what have you. And the commission was, we'd like a sharp, edgy typeface. That was the commission. But taking on board the thinking behind Metamorphosis, we start to explore a typeface that could change form and change shape, but still be very recognizable. It could still be an identity. So this is how this turned out. So there will be multiple characters for each letter at various stages of legibility, but always, we hope, legible. This TV is in our studio, so the wall that you see there is a painting on the back of the studio. She's behind me at the moment, so you can just get glimpses of it in there. And these are posters in situ, or mini posters that they did. And again, you can see how the visual language is developed over a series of applications. And then this is, I don't know if you know about Neri Oxman. She's a fascinating, I don't know how to describe her really. She's a scientist. She's does amazing digital work. She's a really fascinating thinker, and her favorite project for me was she built a dodecahedron kind of dome, and she bought some silkworms and fed them up and put them onto the dome, and they basically wove a covering over the dome in silk, which is incredible. But she was asked by Wallpaper Mag to curate an issue of the magazine, and she asked us to help her with that and to do the graphic design on it. So this is what we made. So the lettering is made out of components of a work. And basically, the Krebs cycle of creativity shows how she views the world and how basically she works, and it's this hybrid crossover between art and science and engineering and design, and this fluid pathway that exists between them all, and that nothing is ever closed off from anything else, that they all interrelate and interconnect. And yeah, it's a lovely concept and a really interesting way of thinking. And this is Mubi. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Netflix, with that does a kind of art films and really, really cool, interesting movies. So if you like films, get onto Netflix. Get on Netflix. Get on the Mubi, because it does some really wonderful stuff. So this is the identity, which is essentially built up out of the arts plus movies as the new art. So the one on the right, pointing the way to the future, is is symbolic of movies. So there's sculpture and architecture and art, painting. So that's the kind of movie trailer, I suppose, for corporate trailer for movie. And these are just examples of the colors that we brought to the identity. And this is a film poster that we did for a movie called Under the Silver Lake. And we tend to do campaigns for them, for all the movies coming out. We start off, if we start off quite corporate and quite recognizable, then we start to break that down now and become a little more expressive with the work that we do for them. And this is a craft council, which I think is a nice identity, so the kind of conceptual thinking that we enjoy. Basically, to collect is to have more than one item. You can't have a collection and only have one thing. You've got to have more than one thing. And there are two L's in the word collect. So that means that collect has got a collection of L's. And so you build up the identity from this signifier of the two L's being symbolic of a collection. And then we get playful from there and stretch out the graphic identity from there. Build the toilet signs and what have you. And nearly every project that we do now has some social media aspect to it. So these were Instagram posts. Identity applied, some advertising on the tube. And the identity kind of evolves over time. So we kind of stretch it over every year to give it a slightly different feel. And this is an interesting project for us. So this is, PROA is, it's a kind of an art institution in Buenos Aires in Argentina. They had a very sort of interesting and very specific brief. They wanted an identity that reflected their local environment, but also was international. So it's kind of apparent contradiction in terms. But what we did was they didn't have a very big budget, so they sent us some films of the surrounding area. It's really fascinating. A lot of the buildings are made with using corrugated iron, which is a kind of iron with a wave in it, and that iron was used on the ships coming out to Argentina to give them bars to keep them steady in the water. And then when they got to Argentina, they'd empty out the metal and they would fill it full of produce from Argentina. And they would use the metal on the houses. And they also, as a big part of that their local port area was a massive metal bridge which was supposed to be a sort of symbolic importance, really, because on the ships on the way from Europe, the first sign of anything made by man would be this bridge. And so we thought that it was a nice symbol to draw on. And so we made a typeface out of the bridge. So that's why it looks as it does. These metal rivets, and there's a very modular and distinctive typeface. What I like about it is the eccentric letter forms in some areas and very utilitarian letter forms in others. So you get really peculiar letters like B, and the numbers like the 8 and the 9, but you get very utilitarian, straightforward letters like the P and the A. And these are some identities for exhibitions that have been held at the gallery. And this is a most recent thing we've done for them, which is an identity for a kind of a breakout space that they've made. And you can see that they've clad this space in the corrugated iron with the waves. And the typeface is just a take on that, really. And this is a course called MAMF, the Material Futures Master of Arts course at Central St. Martin's. And they make kind of trainers out of mushrooms and crazy things like that. They're very, very interesting, futuristic. And this is the identity that we created for them. So it very much reflects the central motif. Very much reflects the Petri dishes and the and this is a typeface, which was kind of made out of almost like glass tubes. Was the inspiration for this. So lots of variety in the expression of this identity. And recently we've just we've done an identity for a recording studio, and this recording studio was founded by George Martin, who's the producer of the Beatles, and there he is with John Lennon. He's the one on the right. And behind him is the original identity. And so we took that as our starting point to grow the identity from, and started making basically extending the visual language out from that point. So this is a website. When you roll around, it responds to your mouse. And it's a business. Again, with very different tenors to them. So you got very incredibly intense orange, and then a more classic black, and the more neutral beige kind of colors. And this is the black. This is the back of the reverse of the letterhead. And we did quite a lot of marketing material for them as well. Even an umbrella. Okay, right. That's as far as we got to. So that's me. So I'm going to stop the sharing now and hopefully get lots of really interesting, difficult questions.
Okay, I'm on duty. Thank you very much, Tony. For me personally, I was really, really impressed about everything. I'm sure most of the audience was as well. I loved the letters and much more. For the questioning thing now, we decided to open both ways. So either you can write in the comments your questions, or you can wave your hand in the Zoom menu, participants or Teilnehmer, and then we try to see you and unmute your microphone, and you can tell your question. So we hope there are many questions. Perhaps I can start with one to kick it on.
Please.
I was especially impressed about this cross-media approach you have. So you start with a found thing from the garden, it's photographed, it's getting digital, it's overworked, it's starting to move, and then it looks like an X-ray picture in a way. So that's not that much seen in the nowadays, what I feel. So it's it gives everything a very haptic aspect, which I really liked very much. So is that kind of inside all your projects? Or does it just come with whatever is the main idea of the project?
It doesn't come with all of them. It's now an option for us, whereas before we stick to our computers. We never get away from our computers, and so it was a very deliberate kind of idea to get away from our computers and start making things with, you know, in the world that surrounds us, the analog world, and combine that with the digital. So you know, we still make a lot of our just entirely have the option to be able to open it up, and our minds open up to what's around us as well. So if it works and if we think it's going to be good, then we'll go in that direction.
Okay. So let's see if there are any questions from the audience. Please don't hesitate. Hello, everybody. Get off the sofa.
Oh, Janine. And
oh yes, Janine. Great to see you.
Hi. I just wondered which programs you use to create these graphics. For example, the last ones with the like really complex shapes, create circles. Which programs do you normally use to create them?
Well, it's the creative suite plus Cinema 4D
Okay.
and processing. Yeah, so processing is something that we've been playing with quite a lot recently. It's just lovely how organic and responsive it is. So it's,
yeah.
You know, it's a really nice thing to use if you can find a reason to use it, a good reason to use it.
So you use a lot of 3D and 4D, or do you also work 2D?
Yeah, we do. We do all of the above. Everything's always a blend of. It's nearly always a blend of those things.
Okay, thank you.
But as I say, that there's a crossover. There's always a potential crossover between the analog and digital, which I think it's not. You don't want to use it all the time, but it's important to at least open up that avenue if it's there, you know,
Yeah.
because it does add something. It adds a sort of a warmth to things which might otherwise be cold and hard. Although I like the cold and. I hope that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We have one question in the chat, which I can add to this. It says that as you have been embracing processing and generative design at Spin for some time now, what would you say, what are your thoughts about how artificial intelligence will increasingly impact the design industry?
Well, I can't answer that with any authority other than to say that it's unlikely that artificial intelligence is going to do exactly what we would do. So I suppose if you want a robot to design it, then that, for some things, that kind of makes sense. It'd be a relief not to do some of the things you have to do. But if you say that our approach is very idiosyncratic and has its own kind of fingerprint, then I don't think we've got too much to worry about. I think it's more generic design that would be more concerned by that, to be honest. I can see Curtis has raised his hand.
Exactly, yeah. So Curtis,
Very good.
one of your guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, no, my question regards your journey in a project, really. Like, do you, like, with the analog and the digital, do you often like start off with very tactile ways of generating ideas in regards to analog stuff, and then finish it like perfection through the screen and computer, or is it really quite organic? Do you sort of swing both ways? You go to analog, you go back to digital, and then you bring it back to tactile. So I'm just sort of interested in that sort of your journey, really.
Yeah, everything ends up being pixels in one way or another.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it really depends. I think that most of the ideas come from really old-fashioned discussion and really rudimentary sketching out of ideas, and then from that we start to develop visuals. So it's conversation, it's possibilities. We've got a big kind of sort of board that we write on, and so it's very old-fashioned in that sense. But it's a lot quicker drawing and sketching in that regard than it is using a computer to try and show something. So it always starts off in an analog world and then gets developed in whatever way we see fit or whatever way we think is best to do to follow. But it's pretty loose, to be honest.
Super. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We have one more question in the chat. It's a funny one. How many designers work in your studio? Do you have internship? And how hard is it to become designer at Spin?
It's really hard.
Imagine that, for sure.
I'm just counting now. There are 5 of us here at the moment, and soon to be 6. We're a fairly small studio. That's quite large for us. We're a fairly small studio, and it's interesting. I think it was Eric Spiekerman said that whatever size studio it is, only 3 people ever work on it, on any project, even if it's the Olympic Games. And I think that that's pretty much true, you know. So you can have 150 people and only 3 people will work on any given project. And so we do absolutely have internships. Ollie from Stuttgart and is doing an internship with us. We get interns from all over Europe, and we pay them. They'd be pleased to hear, and interns really contribute an awful lot. They're given real responsibility and real expectations, and they do very well.
So Stefan, you would find Tony on in the web. So, but an additional question for me. So, is it a very stable team? So, is it a team for a long time, or are there a lot of changes?
We had a lot of changes at the end of last year, but generally, it's very stable. So we have Jonas and Vincent, and my daughter at the moment is a design student, and she's interning with us, and Ollie. And we're going to have Nina joining us next week, who's she's here for 3 or 4 months, maybe longer. So yeah, it's I think the thing was that we struggled with interns knowing what to do with interns initially. We've been very careful about the kind of people that we take in, because there are expectations of them. You know, they are expected to take responsibility and to contribute, and I think they get an awful lot out of it. You know, by being given genuine responsibility, they contribute. They feel good about themselves to contribute, and they learn a lot. So I think it's very good. It works well for us, and it works well for them too.
Okay. We have a question from Tina from Linz. You still create and design books with unit edition. Do you see the book as the real archive in comparison to anything digital? What I'm wondering is, if we switch all things to digital, what will be left in 40 years? Or are the things you have created digitally, ultimately, do you think these designs will still be with you in 10 or 15 years? Or perhaps, do we need them then?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I mean, if you look back further, what's left of ancient, a few sort of tumbled down temples and some pottery. So I don't know. I think that books are pieces of technology. You don't need to plug them in. If you drop them, they don't tend to break. They're wonderfully functional items, and I think they're doing well for, and they smell nice too, which people don't generally say that computers smell nice. So I think the aim is that we don't archive as carefully and religiously all the outputs, the creative outputs that are online. Well, they're not being stored and accessible as really they should be. They should be looked after in the same way that books are looked after in a library. There should be an archive somewhere of digital work. So I think if there were, then it would be equal. But I mean, you know, screens are exciting. I mean, who doesn't spend a lot of time on their phone every day? So, you know, it's just, but I think the archive thing is an issue. Oh, Nicola, I can't hear you.
Here I am, yeah. Thank you very much for this answer. I go ahead in the chat before we say hello to Lisa. Guillermo says hello from Buenos Aires. Wow, thank you very much for sharing this. The lecture was fantastic.
That's great. Hi, Guillermo.
And someone else asks, I have observed that your work is not what we see strictly business. However, you convince your audience to adapt on your proposals. How do you manage to achieve this?
We're very charming.
You're sure? Anything else?
we don't. You have to make. It's really important for your client to be engaged with you, and it's really important for you to be engaged with your client. If you are, you can. There's no there's no secret to it. If you're both listening to each other and discussing things with each other and have an honest relationship, you can get much further creatively than otherwise. Because if it's a battle and you're trying to impose your will, then you know it doesn't usually, it doesn't always happen, but usually clients are much braver and much more willing to with you if you've listened to them and if you've got really good reasons for doing what you're doing. If it's just because I like red, then that's hopeless. You know, you got to be a bit more. You got to have a better argument than that, or I like Helvetica or whatever it is.
Okay, so it's on relationships, like
it is, and
of life as well.
and it's engagement as well. Engagement with the subject, thinking about it, being relevant to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Lisa is with us. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
So first of all, as a design student, I really admire your work.
Oh, I can see the book in the background. Well done.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's an accident. I did not place it there. But my question would be, as an expert, what would you suggest young design students to focus on the most? Like, would it be going into a big agency after the university, or would you say come to us, a little 5-person agency? What do you think is the better option?
Option is the option that gives you the most creative opportunities, and I don't know which that necessarily is, but if you work in a smaller company, you'll tend to hear conversations and get experiences and get exposed to things that you might not ever exposed to at a big company. But it really depends what you want out of your career, what you want to make. And essentially that's I suppose that's kind of at the core of this talk, really, is that we weren't Spin wasn't able to make the work that I wanted us to make. So I started making it for myself. And there's this quote from Kevin Costner, which from The Field of Dreams, which says, "Build it and they will come." And that's kind of what we did, was we started building it and people started coming. So it depends, you know, and commissioning us. So it depends what you want, what kind of design you want to do and what you're happy. You've always got your own spare time to do whatever you want, whatever crazy stuff you want to do. So it depends what you're feeling. Where are you leaning towards?
Okay, that's a nice answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Lisa, please unmute and then turn the video off. Heidi was asking, does the Brexit influence your work and your office?
It just makes us miserable. I'm not, that's a very sore point for me. I just think it's the most stupid thing any country has ever done, except for maybe electing Donald Trump. Yeah, I'm a passionate European. Mm-hmm. And will remain so.
Okay, we would love you to remain, but
yeah,
not in our hands.
I'm not sure that you'd want us the way that we are at the moment, but hopefully things will change one day, and you know, we might be worthy of membership again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. We don't have anything else in the chat. We have some raising hands. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if there are not any more burning questions, I would say we are really happy that this evening worked so fine, and that we have had such such a great insight in your work, Tony. Thank you for having this adventure of a digital version with us. I think it was really great.
Thank you.
But I don't lose the hope that we one day perhaps meet in real life, which is even much better, I guess.
Absolutely. I'll hold you to that.
Okay.
I'd love to come.
So thank you very much.
I was really excited about coming.
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who was with us tonight. We will close this session. If anybody's interested in what Weissraum is doing besides lectures, so please click on our website. We show it now. Everybody just leaves the session and we will end it in about 10 minutes. Thank you very much and bye-bye. See you next time.
Right. Thanks for your lovely comments. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.